The data is collected. We know that statistics is all about collection of data, then the representation of data. Why representation of data is necessary? We know that once the data is collected, it could be in any way. The raw format of that data could be difficult for some person or some people to comprehend or understand. So the representation of data is all about making that data easy to understand, and also it should be convenient and feasible for the others to use, right? So if we make it easy, we know that there are certain ways of representation of the data. What are those ways? If we represent a data, what actually are we representing? Are we just drawing something? Are we writing some statements? No. Actually, when we are representing data, we are simply showing the frequency or the number of times that information is present over there. Like if I talk about a class, if I talk about suppose the weight of some students in a class. So what would I do? Should I write the names of all the students and then their weights? The better would be, an easy form would be, simply write the number of students falling in the category of 40 to 45 kg, then the number of students falling in the category of 45 to 50 kg. So we can just write the number of students which have that much of weight. So representation of data is nothing but writing the frequency of a particular information. It could be in the form of numerical figures or any fact. I hope you are clear. Now we know that in representation, the tabular representation is already understood and it's done. Tabular representation involves the frequency distribution table, where on the one column what we write the content or the variable. On the other column or in the frequency, what do we write? We write its value or the value of the variable. That is one of the way of representation of data. Now comes the graphical representation of data. Why do we need graphical representation? Guys, if I let you know, it's quite very well said that one picture is better than 1,000 words. Why do we say like that? Because a person's photographical memory is much better than the regular memory. So if I talk about that, this graphical representation must be the pictorial representation of data. What do we mean by pictorial representation? That means in the form of some pictures, we are going to represent the data so that it becomes easy to contain in mind. Understand? Let us just write about it. What is graphical representation? Graphical representation of data is the pictorial representation of data. What do we mean by pictorial? That doesn't mean that we need to put some images. We mean that we can use some graphs to show the data in the form of bars. It could be in the form of histograms. It could be in the form of frequency polygon. I'm just going to make it right over here. So graphical representation of data is the pictorial representation of data. What happens next? It can be done by the following ways. What are those ways? The very first is bar graphs. Right? What is the first way of pictorial representation of data? It is bar graph. Let me just show you an example. Look at this. This image shows that we have a graph page on which we have made two mutually perpendicular lines. One is this horizontal and the other one is the vertical. This is the horizontal line and this is the vertical line given to us. Why have we made that? Because we are going to make graphs using these two axes. Generally on x-axis what we do? We write the variables. X-axis are for the variables. That could be any parameter given in the question. And what about y-axis? Y-axis is about the value of the variables. Value of variables. Or in other words, we can say frequency of the data. Are we getting it? We always try to write the variables or the parameters given in the question on x-axis, that is the horizontal one, and on y-axis we make the frequency or the value of the variable. Here you can see that there are some rectangular bars which are having some varying heights, but the width is same. So this is all about the graphical representation or the bar graph representation of data. We are going to discuss on it later on in brief, but this is how it looks like. I hope this is much clear to you. Let us now understand the next form. What is the next form? Let me just erase it. So the next way of graphical representation is histograms. What is a histogram? Let me just show you an image. You will get to know about it. If I talk about histogram, what is it? It also looks like the rectangular bar thing, isn't it? But what is the difference between them? If I just enlarge it, you can see here the bars are having some definite space between them. But here we do not have any space between the consecutive bars. They are all in continued fashion. So histogram is nothing but also a graphical representation of data with continuous frequencies, isn't it? So this is the second way of representation of the data in the form of graph. And the third is frequency polygons. Frequency polygons. So when we talk about this frequency polygon, let us understand it. It also is definitely depicted on a graph page. We again have that, two mutually perpendicular lines. One is x-axis and one is y-axis. They again have the variables on x-axis and the value of the variables on the y-axis, that is the frequency. But here, what is the change? As the word says, it's polygon. If it's polygon, that means there has to have involved some some close-sided figure. So if I look at it, if I make a histogram, after that, if I take the midpoints of the height of each histogram and join it using freehand, a line, so look, how does it look like? It is making a closed figure with numerous sides. So this yellow portion is the polygon, which is named as frequency polygon. We will also understand it in a better way later on, but this is all about the graphical representation of data. So I hope you are clear with all of this, right? If I just remove it for now. So what have we understood in the graphical representation? It is the pictorial representation of data. It can be done in majorly three ways. One of the ways is bar graphs. The second is histogram. It could be of varied, the histograms could be of equal widths or could be of varying widths. That also we are going to discuss. And then we have frequency polygons. Why do we represent it graphically? Because it becomes easy to understand and compare. So I hope it is clear to all of you. Please note it down for your use. Thank you so much.